freedom,
family,
world unity.
All these things and more will be discussed on this podcast.
Real stories, real people, real debates. On this podcast, we like to express our freedoms and talk about anything and everything goes.
Like freedom, family is important to us, and anybody that is listening, watching, or coming on the show as a guest star are all considered part of the greatest family to ever bless the solar system, the human race. No matter who you are, where you come from, you will always have a voice here on this podcast.
We like to flex our First Amendment, where all speeches and opinions are accepted for the right of freedom of speech. We have a saying we like to live by. Live life with eyes wide open. Being open-minded leads to true understanding of the world as it really is. Please, come, join us, and enjoy this experience as we embark on this journey of truth as we dismantle the subjective truth. I'm your host, Nick.
And I'm your co-host, Victoria.
And you're experiencing High Consciousness.
Disclaimer. Any and all information on topics presented are to the best of all who is present in each episode's knowledge. The goal of this podcast is to bring people together and set the example we all wish to see in our everyday lives. Whether it's home life, education, politics, history, business, etc. Any and all subjects can and will be talked and peacefully debated about on this podcast. On debate episodes, there will be a set rules of debate that hosts and guests alike must follow. We ask that you, the audience, like we ask of our guests, in the comments to please try to keep the language as clean as possible. We are a podcast for entertainment as well as educational purposes. Here, we are all equal no matter what race, age, or gender. Thank you, and enjoy the show.
Hi, y'all.
And welcome back
To an episode of
High Consciousness.
I'm your
Wait,
host.
were you trying to...
Yes.
Then why did... Okay.
That's what we did last time.
That is true. That is true. Well, you know what?
You know what? Recap. Do it again. Alright.
Hi, y'all.
And welcome back
To another episode of
High
High
Consciousness. I'm your host, Nick.
I'm your co-host, Victoria.
And I'm the editor, Tyler.
And we are
High Consciousness. Welcome back to another episode, y'all. Today is Thursday, so you know what that means. America, a Narrative History.
Mm-hmm.
And today we're going to be going over the foundations of
New England.
and the
Plymouth.
and Plymouth.
Plymouth. Yep, I did it.
Plymouth. It's Plymouth. I know it's spelled like Plymouth, but it's spelled Plymouth because,
Plymouth.
you know, English.
Plymouth. No, and also I just want to put it. I always want to try to put an A right there. Plymouth.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Yeah. Yeah, that
But
happens.
anyway, a little recap on last week's episode. We talked about the foundations of Maryland and the Lords Baltimore.
Mm-hmm. Of the Baltimore, the Moors.
And all their, you know, wackadoodleness that they went along with the founding colonies and all that. Shoot, why can't I remember?
You having a little brain fart there?
I'm having a big brain fart.
Thought
right
Monster,
now.
for good thing we have the book right
Yeah,
here
Thought
too.
Monster ate my thought.
Good thing we have the book right here to reference.
Because I had it in my head right before we came in
Reference
here. In 1634, after Virginia became a colony, a royal colony, that's when the discovery of Maryland happened, and the name of Maryland came from Queen Henrietta Maria, which I guess Queen Maryland. I don't know.
Maryland.
It should have been Henrietta Maria Land or something, because that would make more sense. I don't understand
Mary.
And then
Mary.
well, yeah, the Marie part, of course, but
And maybe she was,
yeah, and Mr. Lord Baltimore, whose name was Mr. George Calvert, he was the one that wanted to keep favor with King Charles, but also did not want to bend the knee to King Charles, but was such a good con man that he convinced the king that, okay, so you don't have to bend the knee to me, but I'll do whatever you ask of me. whatever you need, I'll do the favor for you. And so I just found that to be very interesting how, dude that didn't want to bend the knee to the king, but conned the king into doing what the king needed him to do anyway. Or conned the king into doing what Lord Baltimore wanted the king to do anyway without having to bend the knee. Which the king was saying beforehand that he was not going to, the king was not going to do anything for Lord Baltimore unless he bent the knee. So, Lord Baltimore was quite the con man to get all the things that he wanted that were more.
I was about to say, because he wanted more.
Because he wanted more. And he had put out, so Mr. George Calvert, Lord Baltimore, the Lord Baltimore Sr., he had put in this petition for some kind of, settlement for references to religion that would be, very vague, so that way, all the settlers in Maryland could, worship as they wanted to over here in the New World, as they called us. And it wasn't until after his death that that thing was granted to his son, which was Lord Baltimore Jr., Mr. Little Calvert. What's his name?
What's his name?
Silius.
Silius, because he was silly.
Celius, Ceilius, Calvert, Lord Baltimore Jr. So that was really interesting about the foundations of Maryland. The Lord Baltimores built everything that they needed to, and built the city of Baltimore off of the fact of that they conned the king into opening his change purse without having somebody bend to the knee to get.
Mm-hmm.
Which was the usual case for the kingship back in those days. Is that if any lords or nobles wanted anything from the king, they had to bend the knee to the king, and this would be one of the first that didn't have to bend the knee to the king to get the king to open his coin purse for him.
Indeed. But anywho, before I start reading today's chapter and everything else, I have to go into work today for overtime because y'all probably heard about Hurricane Helena. Helena? I thought it was Helene.
Well, Helena, whatever. She calls it hell everywhere.
Right. It's in West Carolina, so Walmart, the company I work for, my job has gotten a lot of volume and a lot of overtime to help out the stores in Western North Carolina. So
that got wiped out by the storm. We're over here in Eastern Carolina, so we were not affected by the hurricane. But over there in the West, just an hour and a half from us, devastated. Absolutely devastated.
So, and we can send our hearts and prayers out to those people over there. But so I just want to make that announcement. We're going to try to get through this chapter, but if not, we'll either co-host Victoria or our editor Tyler will finish the reading.
Yep.
So, without any further ado,
let's get into it.
With the settling of New England, the Virginia Company of Plymouth never got back to colonization after the Settle Hope failure in 1607. Although it did bestir itself to hire John Smith as an explorer after his return from a visit in 1614, Smith published a description of New England that was published in 1616 and thus named the region. Having watched the London Company's transition from commerce to real estate, the leader of the Plymouth Company, Sir Fernando Gorges, reorganized his moribund enterprise into the Council for New England in 1620, which had the right to issue land grants between the 40th and 48th parallels. The Plymouth Colony. The first permanent settlers landed in New England by no design of the Council, which had some notion of creating vast feudal domains for its members. In fact, they landed there by no design of their own, at least none that they acknowledged. They meant to go to Virginia, they said. The Pilgrims who established Plymouth Colony belonged to the most extreme and uncompromising sect of Puritans, the Separatists, who had severed all ties with the Church of England.
Yup, like I said in the last episode, or in one of our Constitution episodes, we're a bunch of, outlaws becoming friends and, with freedoms, or not opposing, but taking up freedom stances and stuff with other outlaws, like with the pirates.
Oh no, they were just done with the church all in general. Because like I said, they were uncompromising. So they were not budging. They were gonna die on that hill. Mm-hmm.
They were either gonna die in England or start their own new thing over here in America. And well, we all know what happened.
Yes, that we did. Now, they steamed from a congregation established in 1602 at Scrooby in eastern England. Scrooby?
Where is it?
Right here.
Scrooby.
Yeah, Scrooby. Yeah, okay, so this
Like
is it.
Scooby, but with an R.
I know that's what kind of missed me because I was about to say Scooby.
Scrooby.
In eastern England, members of which had slipped away to Holland in 1607 to escape persecution, the Calvinistic Dutch granted them asylum and toleration, but restricted them mainly to unskilled labor. After 10 years in London, they had wearied of the struggle, watching their children gradually turn into Dutchmen, drifting away to become sailors, soldiers, or worse, so that their posterity would be endangered to degenerate and be corrupted. They longed for English ways and the English flag. If they could not have them at home, perhaps they might transplant them into the New World. King James would not promise outright toleration if they set up a colony, but did agree to leave them alone, or as he put it, to connive at them. Connive at them. The Leyden group got the support of London merchants led by Thomas Weston, who secured a land patent from the Virginia colony, and set up a joint stock company. In July 1620, a group of 35 pilgrims, led by William Bradford, left London on the Speedwell. At Southampton, England, a larger ship, the Mayflower, and a larger group of colonists joined them. At Plymouth, however, they had to abandon the leaky Speedwell, and in September, they crammed the Mayflower with their party of 101 members, both saints and strangers, the latter including John Eldon, a cooper, and Miles Standish, a soldier hired to organize their defenses. A stormy voyage led them in November to Cape Cod, far north of Virginia. Heading south, they encountered rough waters and turned back to seek safety at Provincetown, being thus arrived at safe harbor, and brought safe to land. William Bradford wrote in his history of Plymouth Plantation, "They fell upon their knees and blessed the God of heaven who had brought them over the vast and furious ocean and delivered them from all the perils thereof, again to set their feet on the firm and stable earth." Their proper element, exploring parties then scouted Cape Cod Bay and hit upon a place John Smith had called Plymouth for their settlement. Since they were outside the jurisdiction of any organized government, 41 of the Pilgrim Fathers entered into a formal agreement to abide by laws made by leaders of their own choosing, which established the Mayflower Compact of November 21st, 1620.
So there we go. That's where, in our Constitution book here, that was one of the very first. Well, that was the very first thing. That was technically the first document of America. Yeah, the Mayflower Compact.
Mm-hmm.
So there's your table of contents. There's your introduction.
Yeah, close to the.
And then, right there, there's your Mayflower Compact. Very first one that's in there.
Yep, and that was the backstory of how they written it. Not how, but why they written it in.
Mm-hmm. In order to, keep the law, order, and the peace, because you had a bunch of outlaws plus a bunch of saints, and they were all strangers to each other. So, I mean, like the chapter said, you had the Speedwell, which apparently started leaking somewhere in the middle of the journey, and so they had to do an SOS call to the Mayflower and then crammed everybody on it.
And then they got into a very bad storm, and then they ended up in Cape Cod.
Yep. They got there by accident, supposedly.
Now, on December 26th, the Mayflower reached Plymouth Harbor and stayed there until April to give shelter and support while the Pilgrims raised and occupied their dwellings amid the winter snow. Nearly half the colonists died of exposure and disease, but friendly relations with the neighboring Wampanoag proved their salvation. In March 1621, a Native American named Samoset walked into the settlement and later introduced Squanto? Yes. Squanto? Squanto?
Hold on.
Squanto.
Yeah, Squanto. Who spoke English and showed the colonists how to grow maize a few years earlier. Squanto had been kidnapped aboard a pass.
Bless you.
Yes, bless you.
We all know about
Squanto.
Squanto and the story of the first Thanksgiving and all of that. Yeah.
And John Wayne at the first Thanksgiving. Family Guy told me that.
John Wayne at the first Thanksgiving. John Wayne was not there.
Well, apparently,
As old as he is, I don't believe so.
the story of Squanto, huh? Yeah, but he was also had been kidnapped aboard a passing English ship and sold into slavery in Spain. Once he had somehow found his way back to England and aboard a trading ship back home, where he found himself to the sole survivor of the Paltuit tribe.
Let me see it.
It's like Paltuit.
Point to it because I'm slow. No, I'm not slow reading. I'm going to read the whole page first.
It's right here.
Patuxet
tribe had been wiped out by pestilence in 1617. By autumn, the Pilgrims had a bumper crop of corn, a florist fur trade, and a supply of lumber for shipment. To celebrate, they had a harvest feast in company with Chief Massasoit.
Let me see it. I got you. I got native in me.
It's this one right here, but it's like cut off and it says ends right there. Yeah.
Give me this thing.
Yep. I'm just gonna keep my finger on so you can see it. My index is where it starts and my pinky is where it ends.
Massasoit.
Yeah. In the Wampanogs.
Hold on. I got you.
Wampanogs.
Yeah, it's Wampanogs.
That is Wampanogs.
But after the ship Fortune arrived with 35 new colonists, the enlarged group again faced hunger before a food supply arrived in the spring. To make matters worse, on the way home, the Fortune lost its cargo of furs and lumber to a French privateer. But the colony soon stabilized. In 1621, it got a land patent from the consul for New England. 2 years later, it gave up its original economy to the extent that each settler was to provide for his family from his own land. Interesting.
The foundations of free market capitalist type kind of ideals.
Yeah, because
trade system.
Yeah, because all their cargoes and everything legitimately got stolen every time.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, nope, we're just gonna make our own money, do our own. Everyone do their own thing with their own land. A group of settlers brought out the sponsoring merchants in 1626 and promised to pay the purchase price in 9 annual installments. Finally, settlement was delayed until 1648. In 1630, Governor Bradford secured a new title, the Bradford Patent, from the Council for New England, which confirmed possession and defined the boundaries more clearly. Throughout its separate existence until absorbed into Massachusetts in 1691, the Plymouth colony remained in the anonymous position of holding a land grant but no charter of government from any English authority. The government grew instead out of the Mayflower Compact, which was neither exactly a constitution nor a precedent. Yeah, my speech impediment, alright? My bad. Precedent for later constitutions, but rather the obvious recourse of a group who had made a convenient or agreement to form a church and who believed that God had made a covenant with men to provide a way to salvation. Covenant with men to provide a way to salvation. Thus, the civil government.
I'm sorry, future me. I did that to you.
Thus, the civil government grew naturally out of the church government, and the members of each were identical at the start. The signers of the compact at first met as the General Court, which chose the governor and his assistant, or council. Later, others were admitted as members or freemen, but other church members were eligible eventually. As the colony grew, the General Court became in 1639 a body of representatives from the various towns. That was a lot.
So, the freeman, huh?
Mm-hmm.
The freeman.
Mm-hmm.
Is that where the Oath of the Free Man is gonna come into play?
Possibly. Possibly.
Little fun, interesting fact about that document when we get to it.
Plymouth Colony's population never rose above 7,000, and after 10 years it was still overshadowed by its larger neighbor, Massachusetts Bay Colony. Plymouth area, Cape Cod, and the neighboring mainland had relatively poor land, lacked ready access to furs from the interior, and was not in the best location for fisheries, but its imprint on the national mind would be greater than its size would warrant. William Bradford's unpretentious history.
Hold on. Alright, let's see here. Where are we at?
Right here. William, right here.
Unpretentious.
Yeah, unpretentious. History of Plymouth Plantation. Did I just say that?
You say unpretentious. It's unpretentious.
Yes.
Unpretentious. A Plymouth plantation completed in 1651 brought the company vividly to life, and the Plymouth invented Thanksgiving. At least later generations persuaded themselves that its 1621 harvest festival was the first Thanksgiving. During the decade of the 1620s, a scattering of settlements appeared along the neighboring coast, mainly fishing ports occupied only in seasons, plus a few rugged hermits like Samuel Maverick, who engaged in fishing, fur trading, and sometimes a little farming on his island in Massachusetts Bay. The Pilgrims got their first neighbors when Thomas Winston, Thomas Weston, who had helped them sent about 50 rude and lusty fellows.
Oh my.
Plymouth to Westgusset, now Weymouth, but that lasted only one winter. Another tribe by one Captain Williston at Mount Williston, now part of Quincy, likewise failed, and Williston moved to Virginia. He left behind Thomas Martin, who persuaded some 30 men to stay in what he renamed Marymount. There, only 25 miles from Plymouth, Martin's company of Native American traders brought Renaissance England to the New World, drinking and dancing about a maypole, in Governor Bradford's words, inviting the Native American women for their concerts, dancing, and frisking together.
Oh my.
Ooh, risque.
And worse practices.
And worse practices?
That's what it literally goes, ... and worse practices. After the frisking.
Getting frisky and probably then down and dirty.
Oh, okay. But his chief sin was selling the Native Americans firewater and firearms. It was all too much for the Pilgrims, who sent Miles Standish, Captain Shrimp, in Morton's satiric account.
That's Captain Shrimp with an E. Or Shrimpay.
Shrimpay. Captain Shrimpay.
Captain Shrimpy.
No, that's Captain.
Yeah. Captain Shrimp.
B.
Or is it Captini?
It's Captain Shrimp.
Yeah, so what, did I mispronounce it that time?
Well, you know what? Let's look it up on the internet. Let's see how to properly pronounce Captain Shrimpay. Or however you say it.
Well, I know back in the day they used to call captains Captinis.
Okay. Come on, laptop.
I'm a little slow.
Hell yeah.
Who killed Captain Shrimp?
It was a brand.
Well, I know what picture I'm putting in the video now.
It's not you. It's us.
Love it. Okay, so how about we go to google.com. Let's see if Google works today.
You need to give us a dinosaur game on Microsoft
I'm pretty
Edge.
sure it's Captain Shrimp.
What?
I'm pretty sure it's Captain Shrimp.
It's probably just Captain Shrimp.
It's Captain Shrimp. To seize the reprobate and send him back to England in 1628. And that was the New England Settlement.
And the settlement of Plymouth.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was really interesting. So they weren't even aiming for Plymouth. They were aiming for, a little higher than that, and they ended up being there instead.
No, they were aiming for Virginia. Yeah, they were trying to aim for Virginia and went all the way up to the tippy top to Maine.
Yep.
No, not Maine, Massachusetts.
Ended up being way past where they wanted to be, and, well, luckily that they did, because they ran into Samoset and Squanto. I guess, Samoset was the one, which I don't remember Samoset being part of the historical parts that we learned in school. I remember Squanto, for sure. But Samoset, I don't really remember. But it does sound familiar.
No, because he was probably with his friend.
Probably. So, Samoset found, the colony
colonies.
on the brink of starvation. Went to go get his buddy Squanto, that I guess may have dealt with the other settlers that came before them. That might have been, further down the line somewhere, and was like, oh yeah, I can speak English to those people, let me go. Because remember, the whole significance with Squanto was the fact that he was the only native that could speak English. Not very good English, but well enough to be able to interpret back and forth between the settlers and his native peoples as to what they needed for their colony to survive.
What's your take, Tyler?
I like Squanto.
I like squash.
Squash is good. And if it wasn't for Squanto, we wouldn't have squash.
That's true.
Yeah, that's very true.
And from apparently what I hear, the name squash came from Squanto. Apparently. I don't know if that's really true or not. But
I would not be surprised.
I remember learning in Mississippi schools that the first Thanksgiving was extremely violent.
we weren't taught that.
I was taught that.
Of course we were. Of course.
That's interesting how, North Carolina schools teach it one way. Mississippi, that's just, a couple states down, teaches it a whole different way.
I think because they're jealous that they weren't the first 13.
What do you say to that?
I was told that the Pilgrims robbed the natives on Thanksgiving.
We went with that route. We went with that route with history. Oh, we went with that route with history.
That's what I was taught.
Well,
That is very interesting.
Well, to be fair.
I mean, that's the stuff that we hear about now. I didn't realize that was being taught even when we were kids. Now, whether or not that part of history is true, or whether or not what we got taught part of history was true, we don't actually know. Because our education system is controlled.
And as you can see, can literally divide two people up off of what they heard, and it doesn't become off opinionated when one's opinion is actually based off fact that they got taught by a teacher, which in Tyler's case is by the
Now let's also take into fact here that I was being taught 7th grade North Carolina math and 9th grade math from Mississippi, so.
Yeah, that tells you anything about Mississippi.
Wait, so...
And I lost 3 credits because they didn't have any equivalent classes down there to what I took.
So, hold on, let me get this straight. So...
Different states, different school systems.
In Mississippi, you were learning 7th grade math in 9th grade.
Yes.
That we teach here in North Carolina.
Yes.
You were learning in 9th grade there, 7th grade math here.
Yes. Don't worry, I'll pull up
I don't know how to really feel about that.
I'll say once again, different states, different state school systems.
And I lost 3 credits from that semester because,
Information.
They didn't have the classes. And they had no equivalent class in Mississippi to what I was taking in North Carolina that they could transfer my credits over for. They
That's
did not
crazy.
have Earth Environmental Science Honors. They did not have any kind of computer programming class. And they did not have any kind of class that involved the other thing that I was doing. What was my other elective? The trade school thing that Eastern did. Job Corps. Not Job Corps. No, what was it?
CTEC?
CTEC.
Career Technician School?
So they couldn't give me any credit for anything I'd done at CTEC either.
Well, that's really interesting because Mississippi is where my brother went to his Air Force tech training school.
Yeah, that's different.
So the fact
That's
that
not-
Mississippi
that's not-
didn't offer,
That's military. That's military based. That's government. That's not Mississippi.
What I'm saying, but usually in states that have something like that for their military boys, they would typically have computer programs and technician programs within that state, because you would be able to churn out all these technicians to be able to send to the military. It's a strategic military educational kind of blend there. That's usually how things like that goes, which is why I'm saying I'm surprised by that, because in Mississippi, apparently they have Air Force bases that are military tech schools, so it would be rational to have, tech classes offered in the high school realm. But apparently they don't, so that's surprising. Seeing as how you have something here, but in the state that it's implanted in, you don't have it. Whereas North Carolina, we don't have any military tech schools. We don't have that. But yet, we have tech classes and all that. So, that's where I'm
But you know why, though?
making that point.
So I'm going to try to not necessarily make a kind of argument, but it's the fact that, like, how much military is actually in here in North Carolina. So therefore, it's kind of more easy access. Air Force is well hard to get into. So,
You gotta be really smart.
So, I feel like as though, I don't know, there's mixed feelings about it. I feel like that's more like a place they send people out to do recruiting class. That's like a more secluded area.
Fair enough.
Because you gotta realize it's government, military, but that has nothing to do with the state. And also, if those people decide not to stay and live in Mississippi and to stay there for the time of their institution, then Mississippi isn't getting nothing out of it. Because those people go there and they leave. In that same Mississippi, it is legitimately a station school. I mean, that's what I'm looking at it as, like.
Well, fair enough. Fair point.
But I believe that will probably just be I don't know. We got any more things to talk about today's episode?
No, not that I can think of.
I'm dipping up my zippers. Getting ready for work.
Playing with your zippers. Well, I guess that concludes today's episode, eh?
Yes.
Alright, well, with that being said, thank you guys for watching. Please hit the like and the subscribe buttons down below. The likes, will push us through the algorithm and, bring our content to the light, because we're still kind of being shoved into the dark. Not naming certain platforms. Can't.
Yes. You okay over there? You need a tissue?
Yeah, man. I got an issue. I need a tissue for my issue. But anyways. With that being said, we hope you guys enjoyed it. And please stick around for the next one, which will be, Monday's new constitution, which would be the
Virginia plan.
The Virginia plan? Is that right?
I believe that's what it's called, the next documentation. Nope. There it is.
Yep, the Virginia plan. That's the next one that's up on Monday. And with that, we'll leave you with our famous slogan. To live life with eyes wide open, y'all. And we'll see you on the next one.
Woo.